send out some information. So that's how we do a YouTube live stream. Cool beans. All right. So as you can see, I have this disastrous draft board right here. I'm getting the link right now for the draft itself. The first 2 picks have already been made, and that's okay. That's what happens when you try and figure out the draft board. I had a live stream on YouTube. We'll see how this goes. I don't even know if the microphone's plugged in. There we go. I think I'm going to put the microphone right here. If it's too loud, just let me know. I have no idea if anybody's watching this. Okay. Now I'll move that a little further away. All right. So real quick, this is a bit of a mock draft. I'm going to go off camera for a little bit and turn off the AC. I don't want to move that stuff out of the way. That's okay. It's not too loud. There's a lot of stuff going on. And if we get anybody, we'll be able to chat, get some questions and whatnot. But the big question here, oh snap, we got some viewers. Big question for me is what happens with Montreal? Because Montreal is on the board right now. The first 2 picks are kind of obvious. Dahlin and Svechnikov. I think the difference between the 2 isn't that big. There isn't really as big of a difference as perceived. Svechnikov had one of the best draft eligible goal scoring seasons, and he was in the CHL. I forget the translation numbers, but that's that's okay. Montreal's on the board right now. I think they're going to go Kotkaniemi. I don't know. I mean, this is where the draft is going to get really interesting, because it depends if they view Tkachuk as a potential center. Depends if they go for a defenseman. Here they go. Il doit parler français. So I did end up keeping the pick. There it is, Kotkaniemi. This is an interesting move. Kind of anticipated, but still, I don't want to say off the board, because in Mackenzie's latest draft rankings, they I'm going to turn that volume down. It makes sense that, excuse me. And in Mackenzie's last draft rankings, Kotkaniemi really shot up the rankings. I think, I don't know, he's a really smart guy, and he's got a very high floor. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen with Montreal, because they do need that. They need centers. They were rumored to be linked in on Ryan O'Reilly. We'll see where that goes. but there's a lot of moving parts of the draft, and it's much more interesting because, due to the really high, either the massive increase of prices at the trade deadline, the draft is basically the time and the place to really build your team through trades and make trades. Let me spam this post around. Now, this is the first time doing any kind of live stream or a live, I guess. We'll rip the audio and, see what happens. We got one viewer. And there we go. As you can see, I don't have too fancy of a setup, and that's okay. So I'm going to do check marks because I don't anticipate getting any more mock draft predictions correct, because we'll see. 6 people. All right. Check. I know there's a whole lot of black marker up there, but the red marker is kind of dead, which is a shame. Who do I see the Devils going after? Thanks, Kevin. Well, on one hand, I really think we do need to draft a defenseman, but there are some really, really intriguing forwards that are available. So right now, the main choice for me between defensemen is Keandre Miller or Bodie Wild. But if you start looking at forwards, you have a really interesting contingency of Russian forwards like Kravtsov and Denisenko, but also you've got Dominic Bach, who he's really interesting because he kind of oh god, it's a live stream, so I'm going to make a lot more puns. I think he really I can't even pull myself to do it. He really bucked the trend of development by German standards, at least, because Leon Draisaitl was German-born, and he went to the CHL. He was on the Prince Albert Raiders when he was drafted, and I'm pretty sure Bach went to the Swedish league. He went to Vikso. Let me just double check. Yeah, Vikso. So he's gotten more. Ottawa's pick is in. He's gotten more used to playing against high-end professional, top-end talent, and that in terms of defensive positioning, where to be on the ice at all times when he doesn't have the puck on the stick, and he's still working on that. That's still a work in progress. I think the thing that concerns me about Bach is he needs to work on his first step in acceleration in terms of his skating, because he's really good at getting to a high-end speed and going towards the net, but that agility or that area of improvement that he needs to work on is really going to affect his all-around game. So also, since we're at it, there was talk about, I'm going to say 1.5 tweets about Damon Severson being shopped around. I say 1.5 because there was that TSN writer who posted something about Vancouver being interested, and Kachuk or Zadina, because I don't know, I just have this gut feeling that Severson isn't going to be around. But on one hand, our defense still needs a lot of improvement, and you can't trade Severson at this point unless you have almost a bulletproof plan to get another, whether it be defenseman back or a potential defenseman back. And I say that because Pierre Dorian. All right, so I do think it's possible that we move up for 10th. I'll expand on that in a little bit. But if it's if it's Severson, I don't want it to be Severson and the 17th pick. I know that's, you know, they picked Kachuk. Ooh, that's a Kachuk mark. This is gonna get really bad. I don't think the difference between 17th and 10th is a serviceable NHL defenseman. And while Severson is a little frustrating that he's not getting to his potential at this point, he still has flashes of excellence, and he's also a contributing NHL defenseman on the right side. And he's young. He's still got really good, a great salary, good cap hit. So yeah, and yeah, he's 23. So if I'm trading up for 10th to include Severson, I'm not including 17 because that's not worth it. Now, to come back to that first point, my partner in crime, Duncan, who's not with us tonight, he sent me a little message and we were chatting a little bit. There was a recent article that came out with The Athletic. I don't want to say too much about it because of payroll, or no, it's a paywall and whatnot. But what they did is they interviewed scouts around the league and maybe 10 teams or so, not every team, of course, but they found, and what they considered as a scout could be anything from a first-year scout or all the way up to a director of amateur scouting. And one of the scouts said a couple teams around the league view that this is a weak draft outside of the top 10. And, the Devils have traded a lot of picks in this round, because in case you forget, we had 2 seconds and 2 thirds in this draft. So the second from Florida, picking up the Mark Savard contract, and the third from Toronto for when they signed Lou. We traded those away for Marcus Johansson, and we traded our second round pick in addition to Igor Rykov to the Rangers for apparently Toronto version of Michael Grabner, and our third round pick in addition to JD Dudek to Edmonton for Patrick Maroon. So, obviously Ray Shero doesn't make these moves in a vacuum. He talks to Dan McKinnon, the director of player personnel. He talks to Paul Castron, the director of amateur scouting, and he says, "Hey guys, what's the draft looking like this year? Oh, by the way, I've got this pen just in case your team drafts for a grit, because it's a punching belt. It's a boxing glove." Yeah, so that's what's going on. I'm sure Cheryl meets with these guys and says, "Okay, how's the draft crop looking this year?" And Paul could say, "We just had our meeting with the scouts last week, and it's not looking good outside of the top 20 or outside of the top 15." Now, that's not saying that any of this is true, but it would make a lot of sense because we have traded a lot of picks. And yes, that's the you pay for, strengthening up at the deadline. And I think they were shrewd moves. I'm not going to, it's just unfortunate that, we didn't get Rangers Grabner, and that's okay. I'll probably get roasted for this, but if no other options are available, I wouldn't mind re-signing him at a really cheap cost and giving him another chance, giving him the Devontae Smith-Pelly treatment that we had, which was apparently to force him to play injured. No, if keep him on a short leash. If he's struggling, bench him for a little bit. No worries, because we're going to have, it's going to be entirely dependent on whether or not our young forwards are ready. Arizona's pick is in. Let's see. Do they go Zadina? Or they might go Dobson. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, so we've got Joey Anderson coming up in the system, and he just signed his entry-level contract. I think he's going to be in Binghamton, but we have no idea what kind of camp he's going to have. We have no idea what shape he's going to come in to camp as. I think he's going to be able to make the team out of camp, but you never know, because watching him play at Minnesota Duluth and on the USA team, he has this uncanny ability to just slot in on any line and really, really just embody the idea of fast attacking and supportive. And while I'm throwing all these buzzwords out here, you win with players like Joey Anderson. So that's my Joey Anderson love fest. All right. And over here, we've got our Princeton jersey. I've had that for a very long time. I can't help but talk about what an incredible season they had. And cherry on top of all that is Max Verano is a camp invite. All right, I'll hold off on that for a little bit. Let's see what the Coyotes do. Stream just died. Oh, Barrett Hayden. All right, that's a good. There was talk about him being a top 10 pick. I did not have that, so I am going to draw an X. Actually, we'll have to be more obnoxious about the ones that I missed. So I'm going to draw it through as soon as I find this. Oh, there it is. So while we're at it, Leon, thank you. I appreciate that. For the 10 people that are watching, thanks for spending Hockey Christmas with me. I really appreciate it. This is, there's so many times where it's, so many times of the year where you get to actually say, this is one of my favorite times of the year, whether that be the draft, the trade deadline, the World Junior Championship, playoff hockey. And even though we didn't do too well this year, still think we fought hard. But come on, weather updates. I still think that you can see where the team is building to. And obviously, Duncan and I have talked on the show that we're kind of Devils apologists. We're going to be more optimistic about the team and the moves that are made. And I think that's fair. It's also fair to be a little bit on the pessimistic side. Especially because we haven't really had much success, for a while, and there are many reasons for that. What's going on, Anthony? So, yeah. I also need you guys to keep me in check, because if I'm saying too many puns already, or if I'm rambling too much, let me know. Yeah. Kachuk Mark. Oh, I'm killing it. But I think Detroit's going to go Hughes here, because I don't know. I think, Zadina's. This is the problem. It's not that Zadina did anything bad. It's not like he played poorly at the end of the season or in the final stretch. It's just, I guess, that these players. I don't know about Hayden. I'll talk a little bit about Hayden in a little bit, but I think it's just the fact that they just outperformed them, which is unfortunate, because the team really could use a guy like Zadina. We'll see, because Noah Dobson is still – I still think Noah Dobson's the second best defenseman in the draft, and it's not close. But we'll see about that. And we'll see if anything actually happens with Vancouver's seventh overall pick. I don't see them trading. If anything, see, again, I'm just I'm just here. I'm not in a room making these decisions, but I can see why Vancouver would want a defenseman the age of Severson or so, because defensemen take longer to develop and they take longer to actually, by the time that you draft a defenseman, they're going to start really affecting, having legitimate effectiveness, unless they're like a Jacob Chikrin or an Aaron Ekblad or maybe a Mikhail Sergachev. He took a little while. I mean, he took a year or so, an extra year, but chances are you're not going to draft someone immediately and have them step into your top four, unless you pick like a Rasmus Dahlin or a Noah Hannafin type, which kind of, I'm segueing all over the place right now. I think it's going to be a really interesting decision whether, if it comes down to Bodie Wild or Keandre Miller, because both of them are really, really interesting. Bodie Wild skates so well, and he's a big guy too. I mean, he's solidly built. He's not going to get knocked off the puck really easily. He'll lay out a big hit or so every once in a while. Whereas Keandre Miller is on the left side. I mean, Bodie Wild's on the right side. But for me, it doesn't. I mean, handedness is handedness, and that's important. Like, we need a left-handed defenseman, but I don't want to address that at the draft right now. I want to pick the best player available. And Keandre Miller, for those that don't know, switched from forward to defenseman probably about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, 3 at the most. And you can see that in the way that he plays. Detroit's up now. I'm interested to see what kind of development he has at University of Wisconsin, because in my viewings of him, you can see the potential's off the charts. You can see that his athleticism, his intelligence, they're fantastic, and he's got sky-high potential. All right. They picked Zadina. Good choice. Hey, first 4 isn't bad, right? I think Zadina steps into the NHL right away, actually. I do. I mean, it's great that Halifax is hosting the Memorial Cup next year. And for those that don't know, the Canadian Hockey League is divided into, which Zadina just played for. He's in Halifax. Halifax has a great recent history of high-end potential players, guys like Healers, McKinnon, I think Couturier. That might be wrong on that one, but just to name a few. Anyway, and of course, but also NHL, there's the Ontario Hockey League, which is the league that the Devils drafted Michael McLeod out of. And there's the Western Hockey League. So that's like, out west, like the Brandon Wheat Kings, the Vancouver Giants, Calgary Hitmen, etc. So each of those teams have their own postseason tournaments, and the champion of that league then plays all the other champions of the league, and whatever the host city is it's hosted in Halifax this year. I forget. I think it was in. My timing is off. It might have Red Deer recently, but anyway, stream's going out. It's going to come back in. I'm really interested to see where Kravtsov goes. There are a little bit of, I don't even want to say red flags, because that's a little too harsh. I mean, he's got an extremely high offensive ceiling, and I'm really curious to see which team pulls the trigger on him, because he could, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he went top 13 or top 12. All right. Yeah, Kevin, we're still, it's hard not to be excited at the direction that we're going in. It's really, the fact, the immediate turnaround that, let me turn this down. you look at the past, on game day threads or whatnot, or lineups, and see that we had whoever we had on the top line and top power play unit. It's completely changed, completely different. And we're still, we still have to add, excuse me, we still have to add, I think, a top 6 right winger. We can hope that Brett develops into one, but I think for the team, if we can, I mean, obviously, if you can make a move, you do it. Which leads me to think, there's been a lot of talk about Minnesota trying to move guys like Charlie Coyle, Nino Niederreiter, and anyway, in addition to like slapping on a Kyler Ennis to that, and that's a move that the Devils are able to make if they want to pursue that route. We have to be really careful with how we do cap moves because, Taylor Hall's in for a big payday. Nico's going to get his first big boy contract in a little bit. And guys like Marcus Johansson, who, that's right. We're going to get hopefully a full healthy season of him. But they're going to see an increase in money. They're going to see an increase in pay. I do think Hall stays. I really do, because I think obviously we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes in terms of what's happening in the locker room, what's happening in players' meetings. From everything we've heard, it sounds like he's very happy with the role that he's playing with the team, the type of challenge that he's getting from management. So Vancouver kept their pick. Not surprising, but we'll see. I wonder if I think they picked Dobson. They could pick Hughes. They need a defenseman. I wonder if they dip their foot now. They're not going to pick Bouchard immediately, even though they picked a London Knights defenseman, Olli Juolevi. We'll see. Drafted stream is a little choppy, and that's okay. Yep, Quinn Hughes. That makes sense. Hughes is the 3rd best defenseman on my list. I have Dobson a little bit higher, just because Quinn Hughes' defensive game makes me a little nervous. But I think the best way to describe him is there are concerns about his defensive game, but when he's on the ice, he always has the puck anyway. So it's not really. You can see why teams look past that. He's got at least another year. Actually, I don't know. I think he should stay one more year at Michigan, because I'm usually very cautious and conservative when it comes to developing prospects. Something is happening at Michigan. I don't know, but it's a little strange when you get a few players to decommit before the season. So Bodie Wild is not going to University of Michigan. Jack Hughes, I think it's safe to say he's at this point the number 1 projected player to go in the next draft, 2019. He decommitted. Come on, work with me here. There we go. Well, another cross out. Chicago leaves with Dobson. They're going to be really happy. And that's kind of a shame because Chicago's had it too good lately. Oh, let me talk about my mock draft a little bit, how much of a disaster this is going to be, and that's okay. Because at this point, I've got Miller going to Colorado at 16, which is going to really sting because I think, I would have to assume that he's high up on the Devils list because he apparently interviewed really well. He's a position of need and has enormous potential. But I think before we begin on this, let me segue again. Don't follow the NFL. It makes me think of what happened recently with the New York Giants at the NFL draft. So there's kind of a discussion, not really a discussion, but there's a question as to, how many years left Eli Manning, the quarterback, has. And in this draft, the Giants had the second overall pick, and there were a good of high caliber, high ceiling, upside quarterbacks. And the Giants ended up picking a running back second overall. I mean, he's phenomenal, but they just didn't fall in love with any of the quarterbacks. So what I'm saying with that is that even though there's a lot of good puck-moving defensemen available, there's a lot of, smart new age type defensemen in regards to like moving the puck, keeping, skating really well, play smart, good in all three zones, insert dynamic buzzword here. Sometimes you just fall in love with a player that, is not necessarily. I think that guy is going to be Kupari. If, we'll see, it could be completely wrong. I'm okay with that. I like being wrong. I love the draft. All right, Chicago's on the clock soon. All right. Joel Farabee would be an awesome get too, by the way. I'm a big fan of his. So I'm kind of bummed at Islanders signing Barry Trotz. He's getting his payday after winning the Stanley Cup, rightfully so. But Lou is doing a good job of whether or not they keep John Tavares, which I think at this point they are, but that's for a different time. Wow, they keep showing the Hughes brother. They're going to be the next Jerome family. That's what we're saying, really. Yeah, John Tavares. That's right. I think it would be really interesting because I think Carlson wants to stay with the Capitals. They give him the best chance of winning, but he's going to get a massive payday. I don't know what the Islanders' cap situation looks like. I don't know what it's if they do re-sign Tavares. Excuse me. But if all right, what's it going to be, Bowman? The cap is going to be, I think, $79.5 million this year, which is the Devils have over $25 million in cap space. Bowman sounds like a robot. Adam Boquist? Yeah, that's a good pick. I had him dropping a little bit more. Yeah, be Edmonton or Chicago. I think that's his brother. Anyway, I think Shero's plan for this offseason was not dependent on getting a big fish free agent. As much as we're in a position, I think he's going to make a pitch to John Tavares, even if he, he's going to reach out to his agent anyway if he can. There's going to be a select meeting or so in LA with 5 teams or so. The reason why it's in LA is because that's where the 8 represents Tavares is based out of. So I could definitely see Shero's going to go after a left defenseman, and I think he's going to go after right wing. I would be a writer on the Devils, not just because the Swiss factor, but also because he's one of the itchy nose. There we go. He's one of the best. Rangers are going to pick Wallstrom here. Man, I keep losing my train of thought. I don't know how people can do this all the time. Maybe I'll get better at it. But yeah, the Devils are in a good position to make a good offer to Tavares, but I don't think that Ray wants to get too caught up in big contracts. Now, a guy like Tavares, if he does hit the free market, that's a little different because he's basically one of the greatest free players to get to free agency, and that's okay. But I don't think the plan is going to falter much, going to make much change. All right. Oh, these are hurting a little bit. We still got Dobson on the board. We've still got Wallstrom, and there's still Bouchard on the board. On this board and the theoretical draft board. I think the Rangers go Wallstrom here. They just the pick is in because I don't know. They could pick. I think I can see them really have that high end of a prospect in their system. And Wallstrom's one of the best goal scorers in the draft. Whether or not he's going to be the best goal scorer, one of the best goal scorers from this draft, we'll see, because players get stronger, their games develop more, based on their development path. And I still stand by the fact that if Joel Farabee is going to be a player that teams regret passing on, even if he drops to 13 or so. But you guys hear the stream at all? I don't know. I want it to be a little bit in the background, but that's okay. All right. Well, they could pick Kravtsov. That's right. Let's say snap your fingers or take a drink every time Bob McKenzie makes a really good point. All right. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, is it too loud, or I don't know, just me sitting in silence too. I have a bad habit of doing that. Wow. All right. Good pick. It's kind of a reach, but he's just so, when he fills out more of his frame, he's going to be a really difficult player to play against. Now, I know during his interviews, he was asked about whether or not he wants to play in the KHL some more. He's playing for Traktor Chelyabinsk, the same team that Yevgeny Kuznetsov played for. it was mentioned, and I know this because it's, you know, there are scout quotes included in the hockeyprospect.com Black Book Draft Guide. That just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And he said he was open to playing in North America, but we'll see. I think it'd be better for him to stay at home and develop there. He's a guy that I can see playing, you know, 2 more years before before considering coming over, always having it on his mind. I'm just pulling this out of my you know, out of thin air or whatnot, but he could be a really electric talent, and it helps as he got more Edmonton made a trip. No, I hate how they do that. I know New York. I know the Islanders were in on Grubauer, but that was a really, really smart move by offload Orpik's contract. So that makes it they have more cap room to try and make an offer to Carlson. All right. By the way, I think I left my. I'm not in New Jersey right now. I left my Nico Hischier and Pavel Zacha jersey in New Jersey. You know, I'm trying to, you know, put together the money to buy a jersey of our first round pick. I don't have McLeod's yet from Mississauga. I'm still working on that, but I've got the MVP first. There we go. first ever Hart Trophy winner in New Jersey Devils history, which is crazy to think about considering we've had, you know, our Mount Rushmore of team would be, you know, Stevens, Niedermeyer, Marty, Patty, Danico. I mean, and it's just crazy that none of them won it. But anyway, Ted makes a really good point that last year the Rangers went kind of a reach, but kind of a safe pick in terms of who they picked last year. They picked Elias Anderson, the center from Sweden. Edmonton's in. Who knows? Maybe they take Dobson. I don't know. Yeah, at this point, you know, breakdown, and I love it. Yeah, Marty should have. Definitely should have. But all these emails. So it's usually interesting seeing how trade talk pops up around, you know, these things. Yeah, Oilers are up right now. Their pick is in. It was a cheap Larson jersey. Yes, yes, Brian. The nectar of the gods. But the draft stout. This guy. There we go. Yeah, my then girlfriend, now fiance, and I were just in Ireland, second to third week of May. Unbelievable. Can't recommend it enough. All right. Oh, interesting. All right. So this pick kind of by the way, this thing could fall over. So I appreciate the patience with this setup. And what I like about Bouchard, what they're talking about right now, I'm going to turn this down because clearly I know more than Craig Button. No, I'm just kidding. Bouchard is an excellent offensive defenseman. He knows where to be on the ice in the offensive zone. He knows how to shoot. He's got a great shot. And the numbers do speak for themselves if you want to look at his stats. I don't pay too much attention to stats because, there's more to a player than their stats. I really wish that the CHL published time on ice per game, because there were certain games where I was watching and Bouchard must have been out there for something like 30 minutes or so, 30 minutes of ice time. And I think that's ridiculous. Definitely 25 minutes on the ice at least. And, if you are new to hockey, a good defenseman will have, I'd say, 22 to 24 minutes a night, depending on, the situation, what the score is, what the, if it's overtime or not. But 25 to 30 minutes a night, commercial, is just absurd. London was really bad this year, comparatively to how London normally is. The two main things that really scare me about Bouchard are his foot speed, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit. Actually, I'll do that right now. He, who was it? I forget already, but he can get to a good speed, like a good top end speed, but his acceleration and his agility really, really concern me, because they combine with the second thing that really concerns me is his defensive reads. Now, as mentioned earlier, he was on the ice upwards of 25 to 30 minutes a night some nights for London. So those mistakes can be chalked, sheer exhaustion, or just, oh, that hurt. Or just, basically sheer exhaustion. But I struggle with the overall speed of how he thinks the game and processes, and see that information getting from his head to his feet. No doubt he's going to produce at the next level. No doubt he's, he, at the worst, he could be like a low end. And I mean this purely in a situational context of like a Shane Gostisbehere. When he first came into the league, he was basically sheltered with power play minutes. Now Gostisbehere is a much better defenseman, doing more defensive pairing and minutes and whatnot. But at the least, Bouchard is going to produce on the power play at the NHL level. He's got too good of a shot, and he runs the offense really well. It's just those other aspects of his game that I'm concerned about. So, who is still on the board? We've still got Oliver Wahlstrom. For those who don't know, the U.S. NTDP, which is the National Team Development Program. I can't believe the Sabres lucked out and got the National Development Program. Wahlstrom, one of the best pure, nasty shot. We've still got Noah Duck, second best defenseman. Now, I can see the Islanders going. I have them taking Joe Veleno and Ty Smith. Joe Veleno is the center. Yeah, Joe Veleno, or Veleno, however you want to pronounce it. Let's just get this over with. He was the first player to get exceptional status for the QMJHL. All right, well, while they're still waiting to announce. And by all means, he had an okay start to the season, and I think he dropped down a little bit because of that, but then he got traded to Drummondville, Oliver Wahlstrom. Yep, there it is. That's a man. That's a good pick. All right. Well, honestly, the fact that the Coyotes, or the Coyotes, depending on which part of the country you're from, how to pronounce it, well, they compare him to Ovechkin. That's not fair. That's not high expectations at all. It's really good. Oh, hey, the Mets are losing, and the sky is blue. That really messed up the rest of the draft board, and it's great. To get back to Hayden, I'm surprised that the Islanders didn't trade any of their picks. Maybe they just didn't get any. And now Pierre's bringing up Mike Bossy. That should be a part of the drinking game. Every time a player gets drafted, Pierre mentions a legendary player for that team. So I think I wonder, it's interesting right there. Also, teams that maybe this is a wives' tale. Maybe this is just a cheers, brother. Maybe this is just a rumor on the street or whatnot. But teams that have the player that they want have the last name of the player, have the last name on the jersey already when they draft them. That happened with Nico, obviously. I think it happened with Nico. I remember it specifically happening with Jesper Boqvist, our second round pick of last year's draft. It was really interesting that they're there they can target them and they think that they're going to get them and they want them. So I say this because Wahlstrom does not have his name on his jersey. Whether that means they didn't think they were going to get him or whatnot, I'm really surprised that he made it past the Rangers. But on one level, it's not surprising that the Rangers decided to go with a high upside Russian. They picked Buchnevich 2014, I think. And he's starting to really come through. We'll see what happens with David Quinn as their head coach. I'm really bummed that they have 3 first round picks in this draft. But I'll get to that in a little bit. I actually have them picking Merkley with their I think it's 28th overall pick. And the reason why I have them taking that is I really don't know if Merkley's going to be picked in the first round, but if a team were to do it, it's going to be the Rangers, because I think, you have multiple first round picks. They have a lot of picks in general. They're able to take the risk on a high risk, boom or bust player like Merkley. Also, I think, if anything, I don't know. I don't think this is actually going to happen, but I have Wild to Minnesota because, how can you not? That's just an NHL.com article headline waiting to happen. But I've got the Devils taking Kupari at this point. I don't know now that the picks are all over the place now. We've still got a couple defensemen. The wild ride. I wonder if we're going to trade down. I don't think so, because 17 is prime real estate. Anyway, the reason why I put Kupari there for the time being is because, yes, Shero has drafted a center with every one of the first round picks as that he's foreseen as the Devils GM. And that includes the don't pick Dobson. Don't pick Dobson, please. Zaka, McLeod, Heischer. But Kupari has the speed, the high-end skill, the flashiness. I think he would be immediately a fan favorite. Okay. Yeah. Ty Smith. Damn it. Ooh, sorry. Yeah, well, there goes Dobson. But we'll see what happens with Smith and Veleno are still on the board. So now we're here. We've got Dallas, Philly, Florida, Colorado, and the Devils. So that's too bad about Dobson, but that's okay. I didn't even expect him to be able to fall that far. Oh yeah. Crap sounds off the board. I can definitely see Dallas taking Veleno just because they're going to need, whether or not you think he's the best player available, the argument could be made. But I think the fact that Jason Spezza, their number 2 center, is going to retire soon, probably in a year or two, that'll give Veleno enough time to continue building and continue growing. He doesn't need much more time in the QMJHL, but he can't go to the. I'm not going to talk about the NHL, CHL. Oh yeah, that's right. It's in Dallas. Trade news. Yeah. So my guess would be Veleno, but there's not many check marks on here, and that's okay. All right, so a couple other reasons why I have my board the way it is. I really don't think Noel is going to get past Dallas, Ottawa or Anaheim, just the way that those teams are trying to build. That being said, Ottawa did pick Tkachuk, so they might want to get a defenseman. We'll see. I don't know who they've got in their system. They've got Drake Batherson, who's a forward who's playing really well. He had a big jump in production and ended up playing on the Team Canada World Junior team. They've got Thomas Chabot waiting to take over on the blue line. Maybe they take McIsaac. McIsaac isn't on my board. I realize that. I could play that off and say, he's going to be a second round pick. I think he sneaks into the first round. Ty Dellandrea said that Toronto did interview him, and he should go slated, or he's slated to go anywhere from 25 to 35. I think Toronto takes a run at him, even though they need defensemen. So I think Dallas has a good number of young defensive prospects that are going to push the lineup. Shoot, I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank, but I do know that they do have a good number of defensive prospects, so they're not as in dire need of defense as our prospect pool is. Let's see. Who do they pick? All right. Yep. Oh, that's right. Players like Julius Honka, How could I forget Miro Heiskanen? Who knows? Maybe they want to keep building on the blue line. I'm going to turn the volume up.
Being selected in an NHL entry draft is both an honor and a privilege, whether picked first overall or 129th. With that said,
What if you get picked after 129?
I would like to introduce first overall pick, the 1988 entry draft.
That's nice. That's a nice move. The host city or the host team has to ham it up a little bit, and that's good. All right. No pressure though, kid. All right. There we go. I figured that's going to be a lot easier to follow. So, playful banter, insults. Talking about Dallas. Yeah, let's hear it. Interesting. All right. This is great. All right, so Dellandrea is off the board. This is so cool. So Dellandrea Flint was a really rough team. And Dellandrea still managed to get, I think, upwards of 3 to 4 shots on goal per game. So it's one of those things that's always troubling when it comes to evaluating a player in regards to what's the team situation. Excuse me. So do you have a guy that's, a high tide rises all ships type thing, or the team's bad, so the player can't get the points and can't produce. This is great. That's an off the board pick. I mean, it's a center still. It's a center. So that's right. We still have Smith, Veleno, Farabee, and Miller, and Wild per se, but all in play. So I think if those are the players that are high on our board, we're in really good shape. I don't want to get too excited because I've talked about how much I've liked Ty Smith from the moment I saw him playing in the Ivan Holinka tournament. He reminded me of a Drew Doughty type player in the sense of being able to log like 22, 23 minutes a night against tough competition, being able to play in all situations. If you look at point production and even strength point production, he's one of the best in terms of defensemen, but for this draft year. And the only real knock on him, I think, is his size. And I think he plays above his size in terms, but the fact that Philly really worries me though, because they've been one of the best drafting teams in the league over the past maybe three or 4 years. I'd say up there are Philly, Anaheim, Winnipeg, and I guess I don't want to say Buffalo because they've just been having really high picks overall. That being said, though, it stinks that the Eastern Conference is getting all of these top end talents. Like, it's a bummer, but that's okay because that's one of the things that really leads me to talk about my dislike of not trading within the division. We saw that recently with Ottawa trading with San Jose for Mike Hoffman. I don't want to get into the rumors or whatnot. Well, actually, I am by talking about it. Basically, there's a report that said that they don't trade Hoffman within the division, and Dorian, the general manager of the Sens, doesn't like that practice of trading within the division. And I think you can't do that in this league anymore because the divisions are so big. You've got 6, 7 teams in each division. Maybe I'm forgetting something, maybe 8, but yeah, I'm ranting too much. Anyway, who's still left on the board? Thank you, Kevin. Keep me from rambling. Anyway, we still have Ty Smith. We still have Joe Veleno. We still have Joel Farabee. We still have Keandre Miller. There's also, depending on how you view them, we've got high-end forwards like Grigory Denisenko and Dominic Bach still on the board. Bodie Wild is still on the board as well. If I'd keep a close eye on Sandin. That's a good point, Anthony, because not only is Sandin a great skating defenseman, he's really, really, really smart, and he continued to improve throughout the year. So if anything, maybe I don't want to try and draw too much conclusion based off of one signing, but one of the things that really impressed me about Colby Sissons was how I think they just really like Denisenko then. Yep. Yeah. Anyway, one of the things, I'll fix that. That Colby Sissons continued to develop and continue to improve throughout the season. This has to be Farabee. That's a good point, Kevin. This has to be because he reminds me a lot of Claude Giroux. Yep. Dang. They're building a team of spark plugs. They got Travis Konechny. Yeah, he's going to be a pain in the neck to play again for the next decade. So that's a really interesting point. Colorado has an interesting group of young defensemen, led by Cale Makar, their pick last year. We've got the big Russian kid. I can't remember his name. They also got Connor Timmins as well in last year's draft. So they have Samuel Girard as well in the insane Matt Duchene trade. But Colorado, Florida is more likely to take a defenseman, in my opinion, because Colorado has a good crop of young defensemen coming up through the system, whereas Florida has had their very strange analytics focus and then analytics purge. They have Jason Demers. They've got Aaron Ekblad They've got Keith Yandel, but they need to get younger in terms of like the defensemen coming up in their system. And I'm gonna do a quick look at their draft history because last year they drafted Henrik Borgstrom, I'm pretty sure. And I just want to no, that was the year before that. Yeah. So they've got Max Gildon in the system. Anyway, I don't really pay too much attention to Florida, which is, I should change that because we're going to be in a dogfight with them for a playoff spot. But let me turn down the volume. But it's interesting because Ray Sherrill's going to have his work cut out for him this summer, regardless of what happens with who we pick. And the reason why I say that is I don't think if we go into the season next year, I don't think we're going to be a playoff team if we don't make any changes to our lineup. Even with a hopefully fully healthy Marcus Johansson, I hope he has a good summer recovering and training and strengthening. I don't think Taylor Hall is going to go on another 26-game point streak, but I certainly hope that he proves me wrong next year. I also don't anticipate Florida to go on as hot of a basically a rampage as much as they did at the end of the second half of the season, but they're already getting better. Adding Hoffman to their top six makes it a lot more threatening. Florida's pick is in. We'll see. Carolina, throwing another pun out there, Carolina is the darling of the analytics community. But I don't know if they're really going to trade Jeff Skinner. I think he ends up as an LA King. He just that gut feeling. If they're going to trade Jeff Skinner, that's fine. I get that. It's not great, but I get it. There's talks of them trading Noah Hannafin, and I don't understand. I don't, because I think that's going to make your team worse. Well, we'll see. There was talk. Dreger said something about, they're hoping to have 3 first-round draft picks this year. We'll see. Maybe we can chalk it up to LA, just because they haven't picked yet, and for some reason I have this gut feeling. My gut feelings are all wrong, but you know what? That's okay. Shoot, did I? I don't have Kaut on the list as well. Martin Kaut. Your guys' streams are ahead of mine. That's an interesting pick. That means that Colorado picks with Smith, Veleno, and Miller all on the board. So it wouldn't surprise me if Colorado picked Smith. I know what I just said earlier about how many wrong predictions is that Florida's going to pick a defenseman. But I don't know, because they could pick Veleno. I mean, they do need centers. This live stream is a real-time video of Ian slowly losing his mind. Merry Hockey Christmas, everybody. So I wonder why Ty Smith is falling. You know, maybe he didn't interview well. Maybe teams are a little scared. I agree. I would not trade down at this point unless a team is trying to blow your socks off with an offer. Because the value that you're going to get with picking, let's just say we have the choice between Veleno and Smith. The value you're going to get out of those. Commercial break. Now we can talk about Wayne Gretzky getting drafted. Well, do you want a smart ass answer to that, or because the next great player is going to be Alexis Lafrenière. Yeah, how about that French? He's a kid playing in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League for the same team that Sidney Crosby played for and putting up very similar numbers. He's going to be he's going to be a really great player. Speaking of which, 15 people are watching. Thanks for spending your hockey Christmas with me, guys. I really appreciate it. Let me see what I can find on Smith, just in terms of if there's any information on his interview. By the way, fun fact, Denisenko interviewed with 29 teams at the draft. The only teams that did not interview him were Dallas and Buffalo. I love when that information comes out. There's some really great names in this draft too. We're going to see them pretty much all tomorrow in the 2nd through 7th round. I don't know if we're going to see any today. We might see Johnny Tyconic and Jet Wu drafted in the 1st round, so we'll see about that. But you've got guys like Blake McLaughlin, Blade Jenkins. That might be my favorite one. Johnny Mnemonic. If he gets drafted by Colorado, we can call him Johnny Tychronic. Yeah. It's a whole get together. I like the name Scott Perunovich as well. I mean, he's gonna be a high quality pick. Really hasn't been much trade movement tonight. I'm okay with that. Tonight isn't for exactly trades, because it's what happens when the GMs get together. And when the GMs get together and they start talking, that's when things start to move very quickly. We saw that with the 1-for-1 trade. Taylor Hall and Adam Larson, they were, Chiarelli. The word is that Chiarelli was talking with Cheryl very early on, but they really got together and talked at the draft. On the clock. You can call a timeout, by the way. You can call a timeout. Oh, my knees are sore. You can call a timeout from the draft board as well. I wonder if Colorado's going to do that. And is the pick in? Okay, so again, my stream is a little delayed, and that's okay. have no idea what's going to happen next. We'll see. I mean, this is great. There we go. Yeah, the pick is in. I like the idea of Lundestrom to Columbus because they like picking their Swedish centers. They like he's a good two-way guy, and John Tortorella seems to really like his two-way players. Let's see. So could be Veleno. All right. How many of you guys are watching this on TV right now? A lot of you? Wow. All right. This is really exciting. This is so exciting. Let's do it. Let's get I don't know, because they're talking about his heart ailment. This is, oh my gosh. If we get any one of these guys, I'm happy with. I don't think we're gonna get. I don't think we're gonna take Kapari now. Oh, this is. Give me Smith all day. Give me Smith all day. So anybody that's wondering, is tuning in now, who's still on the board, we've got Ty Smith, Joe Veleno, Keandre Miller. Those are my top three at this point. If I had to choose right now, I would take Smith. Because while Veleno is one of those guys that I think you have to pick, Smith is higher on that list. So if it was just Veleno and Miller, I would say Veleno, and then we'll deal with figuring out how to get defensemen in the system. Maybe they trade down 2 spots. I don't see it happening. Oh, this is so yeah. I would choose Smith right now. And it helps that he's a left defenseman. Again, to me, he's a little undersized. He's about 5'11", just under 5'11". But yeah. We'll see. This is really exciting. And again, as mentioned earlier, I mean, just because I really like Ty Smith, just in terms of is it going to be a commercial break? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. No. Don't spoil it for me, anybody. No. We'll see what happens. I have Matthias Samuelsson going to St. Louis, just because he reminds me a lot of not the offensive capability of Colton Parayko, but the idea of like a big physical guy that makes it really tough to skate against and play against. Kind of reminds me of when Lindy Ruff was the head coach of the Dallas Stars and they played the Devils. There was some quote that came out, something along the lines of, trying to skate through the neutral zone against them was trying to like crawl through a barbed wire fence in a wool coat. So I see something like that where Samuelsson, I have to talk about the Jersey guy too. Samuelsson, he's pegged as a defensive defenseman, but I think that's too limiting of a role. You can be a defensive defenseman, but have a good mind and have a good hockey IQ for the offensive game. And we see that with Steve Santini. In that Santini's not going to put up a lot of points. He might get some secondary assists, especially on a transition-based team like the Devils. But The bread and butter of his game is the defensive side. Oh man, if I'm cheesing hard, if we get an option here, I would not want to trade down, but if we're really concerned about recuperating assets, we could trade down and try and get a second or a third. I don't see that happening. I'm gonna if we do take Smith, I will say that at the beginning of the season, he was my guy, even before we knew where we were going to draft. So I just want to throw that down there. But it wouldn't surprise me if Shiro does try to recuperate some assets, maybe not necessarily to draft a player, but if anything, because we don't pick until the 4th round. And that's a lot. There's a lot of talent still left on the board. I think players like Jakub Lauko, oh, pick is in. All right. Let's go. Papa Cheryl, let's do it. All right, let's go. Smith, let's do it. Could be Keandre Miller. I'd be happy with that, but let's go Smith.
First selection in the 2018 entry draft, the New Jersey Devils are proud to select Ty Smith.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bada bing, bada boom, suckers. This is great. Good work, everybody. Good work. I appreciate that nobody spoiled it for me. Thank you. We're all a team here, all 19 of us. I think 20, including myself. Those are good numbers. Oh, this is great. All right, so one of these things, time to retweet everybody talking about 20 is one heck of a party, Mar. Oh man, this is so exciting. All right, so we can breathe, we can relax. Why I like Ty Smith? That's a good question. If you watched the top prospects game, you'd be really down on him, and I completely get that. But to me, he's a good skating, smart two-way defenseman that can play in any situation, and we really need one of those in the system. He's got a very high ceiling. Now, NBCSN just listed him as a upside of top 4. I think that he's got top pairing defense, the top pairing upside. And I'm not just saying that just because we just drafted him. Excuse me. This would be a great opportunity to do a shameless pitch for my write-up. Oh, come on. I despise the new Reddit layout. But this is in the words of, oh, look at that. The last name's on his jersey. In the words of the former Vice President Joe Biden, this is a big effing deal. Above all else, his defensive game is stellar. His positioning is incredible. His stick work is exceptional. Breaking up passes, getting in the shooting lanes, blocking shots, starting the transition. He's excellent. He's got great skating. He's got a good outlet pass. He is dynamic in his skating ability in terms of how would you define dynamic? He can skate the puck really quickly. He's fast, but he's also able to be agile, play a east-west style game, and also change gears really well in the sense that he doesn't go 100% speed 100% of the time. He's able to really change things up, kind of shake off forecheckers, get the puck out of the zone at all costs. I remember when, I'm just going to cross all this stuff off. I remember when Steve Kornianos, the draft analyst, was talking about the defenseman in the Ivan Hlinka tournament at the beginning of the season. And for anybody curious, the Ivan Hlinka tournament, I'm going to stand up for a little bit. The Ivan Hlinka tournament is basically the first major event for draft eligible players of the season. And it goes back and forth between Czech Republic, because I think it's named after Ivan Hlinka, who is a Czech native, or was. I'm curious who Columbus picks. But basically, it's like any other international tournament in terms of like Canada, US, Russia, Sweden, Finland. Steve Kornianos was talking about how strong of a defensive core that Team Canada had. And Smith had a fantastic performance. And Kornianos mentioned that he could, see 5 of those defensemen potentially challenging for a Norris Trophy throughout their career in the NHL. So what happens now is Ty Smith is going to go to Spokane of the WHL for next year. I would very much assume that. Because, he's not that he's not ready, but there's still an offensive game that he can better develop, improve his shot velocity, and improve his how sneaky he can get his shot off. He's not going to be a goal-scoring defenseman. He's more of a puck distributor in the offensive zone. So interesting move, Seth Jones. We can spoil draft picks now. I'm happy. I can't believe Veleno's dropped that far. I mean, he didn't have a bad season. I mean, he struggled, but if you take away the fact that he was, wow, Liam Foudy, holy smokes! I had him as a late first rounder. This is great. Liam Foudy is a speed demon, so this is gonna suck playing against players like that. But that's the way the league is going. Speed. And this is definitely a weird draft. Holy smokes. Yeah, that would be a good assumption. Unless they could take Miller because they have. Duncan and I were chatting about this. By the way, thanks for joining me on this. I've just been talking to. This is a new experience for me, so I really appreciate that. Duncan and I were chatting about this in regards to whether the Devils could take Miller, assuming the board was, Anyway, can you, if you don't have as many high-end or blue chip defensive prospects in your system, can you take the risk drafting a player with as high a ceiling but not as much actual probability of getting there like Miller. And he responded, at the same time, can you take the risk passing on a player with such high potential? The reason why I say that is because Philly has a very strong group of young defensemen. I think Veleno would be a great pick here for them. Oh, this is so exciting. Yeah, we got our guy. And on a personal level, like, it's nice to be kind of, I'm not going to say I'm correct because as you can clearly say, oh no, I'm not going to launch it out there. I could knock it over. But, you know, yeah. That's a good question in regards to comparison for him. I feel, let me see what I wrote in my, if I include it, because I usually stay away from style comparisons because I try to let them be their own player. I know that's a real cop-out answer, but this is so exciting. Well, I'm trying to think of that. I think Gostisbehere is a good like a smarter Gostisbehere with less of a shot, like not nearly as strong of a shot, and that's okay because Gostisbehere has a ridiculous shot, and he's still a pretty good, solid, smart defenseman. Nick Leddy, good skater. The cats are at the door. I can't let them in. We don't want a. Well, we do have a live studio audience. Oh, this is Shea Theodore. That's a. That's a good comparison. I'm just so happy. Yeah, and I think, Smith isn't afraid to shy away from physical game. I mean, that's not he's not going to put someone on the ice every shift. Oh, fine. The lady is trying to get some sleep. She's got some weird hours at the hospital, so I'm gonna let the cats in so they don't wake her up. Come here, you jerks. Daisy. Oh, get over here. Yeah. Oh, they're going to hide, and that's okay. One of them, at least, until the other one. Where are you at? Come here, hon. Thank goodness for allergy medicine. So we're still talking about Ty Smith. This. What is it? Oh, pick is not in yet. It's a little too late. Let's see who they. Jay O'Brien. Interesting. I did not have him as my first round pick. You saw they really went heavy on centers this draft. I'm not even gonna write the board. I'm too happy. But it's interesting. He's with the high school, right? Come on. So interesting selections, I guess. Well, Wild was supposed to go anywhere from like 13 to 21. So I guess teams got a weird vibe from his interviews. They do such. I mean, these kids are 17 and 18, and they do. Excuse me. They bring in like they bring in psychologists to really bring, like the Devils have been doing that lately. Excuse me. Bringing in sports psychologists. And it's, I mean, I get it. You want to know what kind of player you're investing. I don't know what the monetary value is of a first round pick. Interesting. His name is on the, that's a pretty shoddy nameplate job right there. So the big question, who's still on the board? If anybody still cares, just for like draft interest. All right, man. Hey, Swep, thanks for stopping by. I mean, this is a really new experience for all of us, really. So I appreciate you taking the time to come in and share your thoughts. Let's see. Mets are still down. That's okay. Who's still on the board? We've still got Keandre Miller. The big surprise is that Joe Veleno's still on the board. He must have had some bad interviews, or teams must have, I don't know. That could be a thing of high tides rise all ships. So Drummondville was a very solid team. And Veleno, we're at the 20th overall pick. Hey, the Kings got a highly talented center that dropped last year or the year before that in Gabe Vilardi. Why not make it? I think it was last year. If it was, why not make it 2 years in a row? That would be my guess. Stream is freezing up a little bit. Yeah, we're still going. Okay, cool. It's been raining. Yeah, Gabe Vilardi was last year. It's been raining like crazy. So it's been. Oh, I can't believe we got Smith. Anyway, yes, honey. Hi. Look at you. Okay, there you go. This draft really went into a tailspin at 3 with Montreal. I mean, it was kind of assumed that, you know, it wasn't way out of the question for them to take Kotkaniemi. I thought maybe they were going to take a defenseman, but man, then Ottawa went with Tkachuk. I haven't been right a single time after number 4. I love it. What are you looking for, Daisy? Yeah, it is. It is. I should be writing these down, but my handwriting is absolutely atrocious. Hey, come on. You smell the dogs on those jerseys. Now let's see who the LA Kings pick. I'm not a betting man, although New Jersey just legalized it. Veleno plays, I don't know what kind of system or like type of hockey that the Kings are going for, but if they're still going for that heavy LA style, it really wouldn't surprise me if they picked Veleno here. Hey. You're loud. Oh. So while we're waiting, what kind of moves do you guys want to see in the offseason? I mean, we don't have many. I don't see us moving a lot of draft picks. Our best asset it would be our cap space at this time. If we were going to do a cap move, it would be wow. I don't know. That's a really good question about Veleno. I mean, I guess it's not out of the question to say that you believe that Kupari has a higher ceiling than Veleno. But I was listening to, if you guys listen to the Bobcast at all, which is Bob McKenzie's podcast, just where it talks about anything really. There's a rule. It only takes one. So in regards to drafting, and what that means is just because Veleno is falling doesn't mean that he's, there necessarily was a problem or anything like that. It just means that the teams picking could have, I mean, there could be a legitimate issue here, but they could have just one guy ahead of them on their list. And the Kings picked Kupari here. So Kupari's off the board. Still on the board, Veleno, Keandre Miller, Isaac Lundestrom, Dominic Bach, Saron Noel, Jonathan Berggren. I'm just running through these fun names too. Bodie Wild, Rasmus Sandin, Ryan Merkley, Matthias Samuelsson, Jared McIsaac, Johnny Tyconic, and Jet Wu. At least on this board, there's, and all the rest of them. But I don't know. It makes me wonder because Veleno did have a relatively poor start to his season. And to elaborate more, he started off his season in St. John playing for the St. John Sea Dogs, and St. John is very tough to get to in terms of scouts that run around the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League area. So maybe they saw him once at the beginning of the season and he didn't impress and he didn't make it high on the list, and that was it. And that's not necessarily an irresponsible way. I mean, scouts are just so darn busy. But yeah, in fact, we got my guy. I'm going to even draw an arrow with some fireworks. Yeah. I promise if I do something like this next time, I'm going to get more than a working black marker. And that's okay. The red one, ideally, is going to have more ink. Maybe a green, maybe a blue. I was really hoping that the red was going to work, though. The cat wants a lot of attention. Cats always want attention, except when they don't. Come on. All right. So, what's next? What I would do is still test the market on Severson. Just see what teams are willing to offer. Because it was a weird feeling that I had that he's just not going to be on the team after the summer. And whether that be, he didn't really get into clashes with Hines. It's not going to, I'm making it sound a lot more dramatic than it probably is. It's just that he's not really working well with the team. I mean, he's still a solid contributing NHL defenseman, which is why you can't trade him for peanuts. He's 23. He's got a good low salary cap. But, excuse me, and he's a right-handed defenseman, so that's a little more rare. So he should have value. He will have value. Whether that be through a 1-for-1 trade. Peter Shirley, what's up? Or you need to settle down. I do think if we're going to make a trade, it's going to be for a player, because you can never have too many prospects. But at the same time, no team in the NHL has drafted more players in the NHL before this draft, like 2016 and 2017. Than the Devils. We picked 20 players So we've got 20 kids in our system, theoretically. I mean, we've got when was Evan Courtney picked? Theoretically, we've got 20 kids in our system. Whether that actually be true or not, Nico's on the team, Brad is on the team. I still count that in the system. Can't think of that immediately. I'm really excited to see what Brett Sini does. I think he's going to stay another year in Binghamton. Ryan Merkley, interesting. I'm glad about that because if he puts it together, I don't want that kind of skill in our division. I don't know. I think I'll talk about the Rangers a little bit more just because I had Merkley going to them. I think, I'll talk about McLeod first. Nobody wants to hear me talk about the Rangers. McLeod is, I think we're going to keep a close eye on him in Binghamton. I'm moving to Albany in a little bit, so I'm really bummed that the team moved from Albany to Binghamton very recently. I'm still bummed about that, but regardless, I'm going there for law school. So actually, that's probably a good thing that I'm not going to have that distraction. There'll be enough hockey distractions there. Yep, Mets lost. Okay, McLeod, he tops out. Well, I don't really want to talk about how he tops out. We already know that he's fast. We already know that he's really smart. Would you knock it off? We already know that he's really fast. We already know that his defensive game and his all-around game. Can I sit here without knocking this over? Oh, would you look at that? How professional does this look? We already know what he brings to the ice. What kind of improvements he needed to make. He's an excellent playmaker. My two biggest areas of improvement for him would have been improving his shot overall, whether that be an improvement on the strength or the velocity of the shot, or an improvement on how quickly he shoots the puck. And the big one that I think he's making strides in, pun kind of intended, he's making strides on how he plays the game in terms of skating 100% all the time, every time, which is, I'm kind of bummed that Ryan Clough left to coach the Newfoundland Growlers. When I get the money, I'm going to buy a jersey because that's just an incredible name and an awesome logo. The reason why I say that is because Miles Wood specifically mentioned Clough's name in regards to Miles Wood had the same issue. Now, there's a difference between a fast skater and a good skater. McLeod is both a fast skater and a good skater, but Miles Wood is a fast skater, not really a good skater outside of his ridiculous speed. And so Miles talked about how Clough taught him to slow the game down, use his speed, change gears up a little bit, and catch defensemen flat-footed, catch defensemen flat-footed, and just catch defenders in general off guard. Make them have to respect your speed. So, when you gain the offensive zone, excuse me. When you gain the offensive zone, they have to back up, which gives you the space to pass or to sneak a shot through. McLeod has improved on that. I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of year he has. I think he's going to be in Binghamton again. Again, as in clarifying that I think he's going to be in Binghamton for the year. We'll see what kind of camp he has. Again, when we drafted Nico, made it a whole lot easier for him because there's no need to rush. I'm really happy for Merkley, by the way. I'm really happy. I wasn't expecting him to get drafted in the first round because the attitude issues things gets kind of blown up out of proportion. Gets blown out of proportion sometimes. Sometimes there are big red flags, but also sometimes a story snowballs. I don't know. We'll see. There were known issues that Merkley was a healthy scratch. He was sent home. We'll see. But McLeod is going to work on his offensive game and transitioning that to the professional level, where you're not going to have as much space as you had in juniors. I think that's the biggest question, because we know he's going to be able to slot in, if anything, as a maybe third line center, if anything, at the third or fourth checking line defensive center. But if his playmaking can translate, and Paul Castron talked. Ooh, here's Bettman. Is he getting booed? Are they trading down?
In the 2018 NHL draft to the New York Rangers for picks number 26 and 48 in this year's draft.
Interesting.
Ottawa trades 22 to the Rangers.
So the Rangers have a guy that they like.
48. Rangers, you're on the clock.
Now watch them pick Veleno.
Want to hear a trade? The crowd responds, yes. This is it.
Another commercial break. Well, there's one trade. I mean, I honestly don't mind if there's not a lot of fireworks in terms of trades. That would make it interesting and, quote, subvert our expectations if I was a movie critic. But, it's good. It's really, something like this is just as exciting, seeing teams just go way off the board. All right. And, yeah, that's true. Lappin did have a good, solid year in Binghamton. Talking about Binghamton is interesting because that's like the other side of the high tides rise all ships argument, that it was bad. It was not good. And the goalie's numbers aren't going to be good. JQ's numbers aren't going to be good. Lappin's numbers aren't going to be good in terms of context. It's like what you hope for them as a legitimate NHL prospect. But Bastion's same with like Gignac had a torn ACL, so he finally started skating about a month ago, and so it's going to be interesting to see what they do to improve the team. But Lappin could be pushing the lineup still. It's really cool to see the pipeline of prospects and potential players for the NHL, to start rolling along. I'm still happy we got Smith. We're getting a heck of a player, honestly. Like he's good. He's great in his own zone. I retweeted. They do these things called CHL stat tracking, which I'll be right back. Get the cat out. Oh, where are you at? Come on. Get out, Daisy. Come on. It usually never goes that easily. Yeah. I don't know. I'm in no position to get a dog right now, just because I can hardly take care of myself. So we'll see who the Rangers pick. But they do these things called stat tracking or whatever. It's like some kind of tracking, and basically they track. I retweeted one about Ty Smith. They tracked him for 9 games or so. Wow, good for him. Dang. Well, that's too bad. Yeah, a lot of comparison. That's a good one. A lot of comparisons to Brady Shea. I wonder if Anaheim's going to take Veleno. They've been drafting so well. Anyway, I'm just going to read off some stats that they tracked over this 9-game period for Ty Smith. I can't really give the comparable, but offensively, shots per 60, 89. 89. I'm not going to actually read that. I'll just retweet it because I don't want to spread any wrong information. Yeah, Miller's going to be a good one, but we got Smith, so I'm happy. Oh my gosh. Let me message Duncan. But our next draft isn't going to be, or our next draft pick isn't going to be until the 4th round, I believe. I can see Shero trying to trade up. Like there's a Czech centerman named Jakub Lauko that I really like. He's just fast and attacking. Needs to work on his supportive play, but he's just a really fast, dynamic guy. I know I mentioned him earlier. Come on, work with me here. Wow, there's still a lot. And then there's a defenseman like Nicolas Baudin from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He's like Ty Smith. No, excuse me. He's like Rasmus Sandin, who's still on the board, by the way. Sandin is a little bit more physical, has a little bit more of a higher ceiling, in my opinion. Baudin is a really smart, good puck-moving defenseman. His skating is still salvageable. Kind of sounds a little bit too dramatic, but his skating is above average. So, all right, my stream is down. I'm going to try and get another one. All right, there we go. That's a crazy draft. This is a really crazy draft. Yep. That's right. That's okay. Anyway, I'm not surprised that Montreal didn't. I'm not surprised that they didn't trade the pick, because there were talks of how they were in on Ryan O'Reilly from the Sabres. There were talks that Philly was in on Ryan O'Reilly from the Sabres, and it. That seems like too much of a panic move from Bergevin. Like we all like to dogpile on him and whatnot, but he does make some good moves. All right, so all right, yeah. Stream's still struggling a bit. Looks like the Ducks just drafted. Yeah, they picked Isaac Lundestrom. All right, that's a really good pick. I picked the wrong Swedish center going to the Ducks. Why is this stream so bad? Okay. So now Minnesota's on the board. There's still Veleno, Noel, and Berggren. That sounds like a Quebec-based pop group, like a boy band. And Bach, that's right. I missed Bach. Well, now the addition of Bach makes it sound like So, yeah, I picked the wrong Swede going to Anaheim because they've had the right history with drafting Swedes lately. All right, I'm gonna have to find another stream. This stinks. But anyway, we start talking about who got the best value. I think this is not like who won the draft or anything, because it's way too early. But I think, I mean, obviously Buffalo with Dahlin, like he's going to be a mainstay. All right, Anthony, thanks for stopping by, man. We'll have to do a collaboration episode sometime too. Oh. Good luck recording this weekend. Duncan and I are trying not to go AWOL in the summer like we did last time, just because life catches up, you know. Like there's not excuses, but like things happen. Life happens every once in a while, whether it be getting ready to move to a big city. I mean, Albany's like 90,000 people. Yeah. But if anything, every year I want to try and improve with draft profile stuff. And I think, this year was really trying to get into the mind of how these guys see the ice and where they see their roles when they're on the ice. And I know that sounds really weird, and you can only do so much via video scouting. That's why I'm not actually in the rink. But I think I wanted to try and do video this year, and we started doing that with the shift by shift. It just got a little too much in terms of trying to do it with draft eligible players, and that's okay. I mean, but I think there's some really interesting breakdown videos done by, guys like me on a computer in a living room somewhere about X's and O's in regards to like how these guys play and where they go, because that I think is the next step for me, at least. Elliot Friedman just said, well, enough about me. Elliot Friedman just said that Lou Lamoriello said they tried to use one of their first rounders to trade for a roster player now. It was, I don't know if it was Grubauer. Fried said he asked if it was for Grubauer, but it's Lou. So I think and that brings the question of does trading Grubauer for a first round pick bring more value than who did Minnesota pick? Oh, they picked Philip Johansson. What? Philip Johansson. Jeez. Wow. That's kind of not really off the board, but kind of. And that is Paul Fenton's first pick as the general manager of the Minnesota Wild. It's too bad that we didn't get the Minnesota Wild puns available, but that's okay. This is really interesting in terms of like how far these guys are sliding. While my stream is down and I'm looking for another one. By the way, for anybody curious, Philip Johansson is a good defender. Obviously, he's a good defender to get drafted in the first round. But basically, he's a smart, mobile, kind of what you see is what you get. He's not going to put up too many points, but he's going to be pretty defensively sound. So this... I wonder if Ray is thinking about trading back into the first. I mean, we don't have any picks, but I think, excuse me, I think if Toronto, if Bach is available by the time that the Rangers pick next pick, they're going to have to take him because he fits in with what they're trying to do tonight. Or they could go Bodie Wild. But we'll see. I don't see them going Berggren, Noel. Anyway. This is really exciting. This is really exciting. By the way, just so just to get this also out there, the Devils had a recent addition to their amateur scouting staff. And that is, what's his name? He used to be the director of amateur scouting for Buffalo. Excuse me. I got to scroll through all these. But while I'm doing that, Paul Fenton, the current and the recently hired general manager of the Minnesota Wild, was first an assistant general manager with the Nashville Predators, and he served as the general manager of their AHL franchise, or their AHL team, the Milwaukee Admirals, which is a pretty good resume because the Milwaukee Admirals are one of the better American Hockey League teams. Okay. Where? Okay. So his name is Greg Royce. He's now listed as a European scout for the Devils. He was hired this year in the he joined the team in the summer, I think. The guys over at Devils Insiders commented on that because he was one of the guys that helped bring the newly signed defenseman from the KHL, Igor Yakovlev, or Yakovlev, however you pronounce it. I watched a lot of games for SKA, and I still don't know how to pronounce it. But anyway, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. There was an interview with Dan McKinnon, the director of player personnel, on Devil's All Access podcast, and he talked about how, in terms of the sheer size of the amateur scouting department, it's one of the bigger ones in the league, like upper half or so. But the professional scouting, that's one of, if not the largest departments in the league. So it's great to see, them invest those kinds of resources in. The gentleman who took over Lou's spot in Toronto, his name is Kyle Dubas. I think he was a general manager of the OHL beforehand. He's from Sault Ste. Marie. I remember that. Let me just look up. I think he had something to do with the Greyhounds before. Man, he's 32. Holy heck. Yeah, he was the Greyhounds, the general manager of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and served as the assistant general manager for the Leafs, as well as the general manager for the Toronto Marlies. Now, I'm going to keep talking about how happy I am that we picked Ty Smith. Whether or not he reaches his offensive potential, I do think he is an incredibly smart defenseman. Leafs and the Blues. So the Blues jump up 4 spots. Let's see who they got. But Ty Smith, he's got elite vision. He's a playmaker. You read a lot about like leadership potential. Not like that doesn't mean anything, but I mean, obviously you want a good character kid, and that's okay. This gentleman, one of the development coordinators at Hockey Canada, compares him to a Morgan Riley type player, and I can also see that too. I'm curious. Well, obviously curious. St. Louis must like somebody. Must like somebody enough to drop a 3rd-round pick, which just makes that move that Shiro did last year all the better, because we got a 3rd-round pick from Ottawa, dropping one spot. All right, let's see. Maybe it's, I don't know. How many times am I going to say maybe it's Veleno? But interesting note, part of the Ottawa trade that they got from New York, the Rangers, included, there it is, included the number 48 overall pick, which belongs to the Devils. So I'm going to cross that. No trade. Just because we traded them. So let's see who they pick. Could be Bach. You know what? Let me try this. Let me try playing it from my computer. Okay. Yeah. So they did. Come on. They did pick Bach. Flash is disabled on your browser. All right. Little technical difficulties. There we go. Oh, there we go. Cool. All right. So Bach is now off the board. So who is still on the board? Now, wow. Bach to the Blues. That's going to be an interesting pick. I'm really curious to see what St. Louis does in terms of what their long-term future is. There was reports that they were getting calls on Colton Parayko. Not going to happen. He's their second best defenseman right now. Oh, there's Marty. And they're going to need to get an offer that blows them away for Parayko. Excuse me. Jared McIsaac is still on the board too. So we got McIsaac. I'm going to write that down because in case you're wondering if you're stopping by or new, and you're wondering why there's a blank spot there, it's because I put Denisenko twice. But I'm going to write McIsaac. I don't know how to react. I want to run around the house, run around the outside of the house in the pouring rain because we drafted Smith. This is great. But I do see, in terms of what happens next, we don't pick until the 4th round. That's right. And I don't see us. I don't know. We could move up, but we don't really have too many assets. I see us, again, if we're going to make a trade, I think it would be more so for an actual player. And our best asset is our cap space at this time. So I'm actually going to look up Tyler Ennis's cap hit just because that would seem like a move that we can really pull off. His cap hit is 4.6 until the end of next year. I don't know if that gets us Niederreiter, but we'll see. Because Minnesota is in a bit of a cap crunch because they're going to need to re-sign. They're going to need to re-sign Jonas Brodin and Matt Dumba, who are going to garner friendly, good raises. I mean, they've played very well. Let's see who else. And Jason Zucker. That's right. Yeah, trade alert. Yeah. Well, Brodin is a UFA in 3 years. Yeah, Matt Dumba. That's going to be the big. Matt Dumba and Jason Zucker. That's going to be the big. The big questions of how much they're going to cost. So it depends if a team, if they want to trade for Zucker, like Zucker is apparently on the market. It depends on whether you think you can sign him to a good deal or not. That's out of the question. I have no idea what kind of assets Columbus is looking for in regards to Artemi Panarin, because by a couple different metrics, he moves the needle better than John Tavares. We'll see, though. That would be a move straight out of like left field. Let's see. Who does Ottawa have down the center? They've got Logan Brown. Do they need a big center? Do they need a big defenseman? Man. I've been talking for 2.5 hours. My goodness. You guys have been listening to me for 2.5 hours. You guys have any questions? I mean, any Could be about anything, really. Yes, I'm drinking Yingling right now. I'm gonna have to get into a cheaper beer. I didn't say cheap beer yet. Cheaper beer. All right, let's see. Okay, Jacob Bernard Docker. That's a another bit of an off the board type pick. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now that was the Rangers pick. Now we go to Chi-Town, I think. This is great. I'm loving this first round. I mean, what NBCSN is saying right now about him is pretty. I mean, it's kind of basic, in terms of like surface level analysis. He could potentially be a top 4 two-way defenseman. Question on how high his potential is. My guess here is that they liked him enough where they didn't want to risk him picking with their next pick, which isn't until the second round. That would be my guess, because they've already gotten, they've got a couple more assets. I think he's committed to North Dakota next season. Excuse me. Yeah, I think he's committed to North Dakota for next season. So that's a kind of a bit of a head scratcher. But now Chi-Town picks. So I don't know. He had a really good World Junior A tournament, and he was one of the better defensemen in all of Canadian Junior A hockey. That being said, for anybody curious who may not know, the Canadian Junior A hockey is the level below Major Junior, so it's below the CHL. Again, he was one of the better defenders in the entire Junior A hockey, but is his upside worth passing over players that are still on the board? Players on the board at this point are, amazingly, Joe Veleno, Saron Noel, Jonathan Bergman, Bodie Wild, Rasmus Sandin, and Jared McIsaac. So I should be writing down. Yeah, we know how much of a mess this was. All right, Chicago pick is in. this going to be another commercial break? No, I don't think so. All right. Oh. I wonder if a team is going to try and trade up. I don't know. Maybe just wait until a guy like Alexander Alexeyev. Maybe some team falls in love with Akil Thomas too. I mean, there's, yeah. Interesting. So Baudin, not off the board at this point, kind of a late first round, early second round pick. I like that. I like that for them. They need defensemen, and they need defensemen that can move the puck to Patrick Kane. That's a pretty simple job. Let's see. And I'm forgetting already who picked. But what's happening is that these players are kind of in there's not too much. There's a lot of difference in their game, and there's a lot of difference in the type of game that they play, and the direction of the franchise that they can take. They can take a franchise in, but a lot of them are sub 6 foot defensemen that move the puck really well, like a new age type defenseman. But smart, like all the intangibles that you look for. Oops. We'll see if Tyconic and Wu get drafted, but I don't anticipate that. wonder if they take McLeod. That would make things interesting. Niels Lundqvist, that's an interesting pick. I had him pegged as a potential target. I guess there's only one team in the greater New York metro area that can have players named Lundqvist. Yeah, I would be excited if I were. Yeah, it's a good draft. Smart, a guy that just continued to improve throughout the season. Basically, yeah, again, smart, good in all three zones. Great skating, again, really smart. Just knows where to be on the ice. So the big question, though, is how high his upside is in regards to, can he translate to a North American type game? Can he continue to produce offense at a high enough level? Just in general, regardless of, he'll probably be in Sweden. There's a big question on development path to the NHL. If you are drafted from a Swedish league or the Russian league, there have been, there's a big debate in regards to, does the AHL serve as a good development league for players drafted out of those like Swedish and Russian leagues? We'll see. We'll see who Toronto picks, but this has been a phenomenal draft. This has been a fantastic first round. I had Samuelson going at this point. Who knows if, we'll see what happens. Let's check on the internet. Gonna. Drawing more arrows because I don't know. That was my guy. I know. Oh shit! Shoot, it's almost 11 o'clock. And that's okay. Tomorrow's gonna go a lot faster. Blink of an eye. I don't think I'm gonna do this just because I don't anticipate the Devils getting that. We don't draft until much later in the day. Pick is in for Toronto. But don't worry, I'll definitely talk about it. I'll definitely write and post about it, and what my thoughts are in regards to our overall draft class. Oh, don't show the guys that haven't been picked yet. It'll be a smart move to take Veleno. I'm just a broken record, honestly. This is hockey Christmas. one thing that I like about the second day of drafting is that it just like, all right, you know, come on, guys, move it along. Could it be Matthias Samuelsson?
Toronto Maple Leafs would like to thank Jim Nill and the Dallas Stars for their hospitality throughout the week.
Did you say that earlier?
With the 29th selection in the 2018 NHL entry draft, the Toronto Maple Leafs are proud to select from the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds,
Rasmus Sandin.
Sandin.
Wow.
And there's a strong connection, obviously, between Rasmus Sandin and the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds and the former general manager of the Sault Greyhounds, Kyle Dubas, and the Sault Ste. Marie native, Kyle Dubas.
Wow. Holy smokes. That's, oh, how many Swedish defensemen is that? Boom. Well, not just Swedish players. Oh. So, who's still on the board? You've got Jared McIsaac still on the board. You've got Joe Veleno still on the board. You've got Matthias Samuelsson. You've got Johnny Tyconic. And you've got Jet Wu and Alexander Alexeyev. Among others, those are the ones that I think are the most prevalent at this point. Holy smokes. And Bodie Wild. Oh my gosh. And Ryan McLeod. I keep thinking Hughes went to Detroit. They do need defense. Jeez. Don't use the Incredibles to sell cars, please. Let's talk about some later round draft picks, just so you know, because it's going to be a bit of a crapshoot after the fourth round or so. An example would be Jesper Bratt was supposed to go, projected to go as a fourth round pick or so. I'm just going to name off a couple names. Excuse me. Scott Perunovich. He's probably going to go in the second round, but still a good value pick. Tyler Mannon, Sampo Ranta, just for the name, if anything. I'm a big fan of Joey Keane, defenseman from the Barrie Colts of the OHL. Pavel Gogolev from the OHL. There's a couple really good goalies in this draft. The benefits, I don't know, benefit is the right word, but there's I'll use benefit. There's a real benefit to drafting goalies not from the CHL because there's a time limit, there's an age limit, there's a season limit on how long they can play in the CHL, and then they're in your system. So what I mean by that is we just lost the rights to Evan Cormier because we have too many goalies in our system right now. Whereas a guy that we drafted, a guy like Gil Sen from the Swiss League, there's no real NHL Swiss League, so NLA, it's called the National League A. No real transfer agreement, so we own his rights indefinitely. So we can just let him sit and marinate over there. I don't know. what the specific transfer agreements are between leagues. I know there's one between the KHL and the NHL. I don't think there's one for the Czechs, but anyway, there's the best goalie available. Red Wings pick is in, by the way. The best goalie available, in my opinion, is Jakub Skarek from the Czech Republic League. Some other good goalie. I'm going to stay away from CHL goaltenders, not because they're not talented, but because, again, of what I just mentioned. I would look at Lukas Dostal, Justus Annunen. Dostal and Skarek are from the Czech. Dostal is in the second Czech league. Skarek is from the top Czech league. And Annunen is from the Finnish league. All right. Oh, they're standing up there. Stop showing the kid. That poor kid. There it is. There it is. Jeez. Reminds me of something that Don Cherry said. I'm not going to do an impression, but he said to the people, if you're draft eligible, he suggested if you're not projected to go in the first 2 rounds, don't show up because you don't want to just sit there. You don't want to just sit there as pick after pick after pick after pick goes. Now, for anybody wondering while they're talking about this, the CHL, the 3 leagues of the CHL do something called an exceptional status, which means normal age is basically 16 to 20, sometimes 21, depending on the specific date of your birthday. The OHL has had a few exceptional status, which means you get to play in the league as a 15-year-old. That's John Tavares, Connor McDavid, recently Sean Day, defenseman, who fell to the third round, and was drafted by the Rangers, which is why I thought, if anything, they were going to pick Merkley, but San Jose got him first. Veleno was the first player in the history of the QMJHL to get exceptional status for that league. And I don't believe there's ever been an exceptional player for the WHL. So we'll have to see. One more pick in the draft, then I'm going to call it a night. I appreciate all of you joining me today. Feel free to message me or anything, really. I mean, chat about hockey, chat about anything, really. So who the Caps are going to pick? I've completely, my board is completely destroyed. McIsaac is still on the board. Bodie Wild is still on the board. Noel is still on the board. Berggren is still on the board. So it's interesting. Detroit needs a blue chip defensive prospect in their system. They've got a guy like Dennis Chalowski, who is now playing. Oh, shucks. He was with the St. Cloud State of the NCAA, but he moved. He's playing in the WHL, I think. But they needed another high-end defenseman. Do they? They got, what's his name? Joe, not Veleno. Hicketts, I think his name was. They signed him as UFA, but again, they need a dynamic blue chip defensive talent, and there were a lot available, but they went with, I guess, best player available. So Zadina, that's really good value at 6. And Valeno at 30, that's just ridiculous. Cap's pick is in. Maybe there's going to be more trades tomorrow. Again, I'm not really, as long as you get your guy, I'm happy. So yeah, this is a they're going to have to go defenseman, right? You're going to have to go defenseman. I mean, they picked Lucas Johansson. Johansson. Alexiev. Okay, interesting. They went with the All right. So there we have our first round in the draft. I want to thank all of you for joining me tonight. I want to thank all of you for chatting with me throughout the season, reading my stuff, telling me it sucks, telling me it's great. I appreciate all of it. And it's going to be an exciting day tomorrow with rounds 2 through 7. Devils aren't going to be, I don't think we're going to be as active tomorrow. We could see trades happen, but again, it's not like trades happen immediately when this happened, but GMs start to talk. They talk more when they're in person, and things start to move more quickly. So I am over the moon that we got Ty Smith. I've been high on him all year, and I'm really happy. I'm going to do a celebratory post tomorrow talking about all this. I need to let it settle in and figure out what we're going to do next. But this was a really, really, this was a fun experience for me. I mean, as you may tell, this was my first time doing any kind of live stream. Duncan and I don't live stream the podcast. We record it, edit out all the ums and uhs and awkward silences. I mean, Duncan does the editing. He does all the heavy lifting, really. Yeah. But Arizona, thank you for taking Barrett Hayden 5th and sending this draft into a wild ride. I'm going to end the stream now, and I want to thank all of you for joining me. This was a really fun experience, and I look forward to chatting more with you. All right, take good care of yourselves.